Emma, have you seen the news on the recent presidential reshuffle that just happened?
When I saw it when I was at work today, so I was just working, and then I was doing some stuff, and then just decided to just pick up my phone and then just went on Facebook. And the first news I saw, like from one of the, I think the Facebook pages, and it was like some. I actually saw it from one guy who was posting about there is a political activist, I think, who went to exile to Kenya because I think Mel was threatening. I mean, it was a threat to him, so he ran to exile into Kenya. But then he posted like before the decree was issued, and it was like, I'm going to come back to South Sudan like as soon as possible because Mel is going to be relieved. And it's just exactly after some few minutes, I read the same thing on that page. President Salva Kiir relieved Benjamin Bol Mel as the vice president. And then, man, and it didn't only end there. I saw the other um, positions that it was relieved from is dismissed from the National Security Services, and National Security Service relieved, I mean, demoted as from full general into a private and dismissed as first deputy chairperson of the SPLM party. I was like, what the hell is this? I think so many people were expecting that. So, yeah, I just saw it when I was working, and then, yeah, but I wasn't surprised though. I expected that this would happen, but I never expected it that it would happen today. Yeah.
Basically, Bol Mel lost all four positions within at the same time, within like 30 minutes.
I mean, yeah, like that's. I feel like that is a very big humiliation to him. I mean, you've been undressed of all the privileges and powers that were given to you, and I think that should worry him so much because, I mean, you're being humiliated in the face of the entire nation. Remember, he was just appointed the other day as a vice president, as promoted as a general, as deputy chairperson of the army, and then into the National Security Service. But just within some few seconds, then you deprived of all these privileges and taken back into a common citizen of a country. I mean, that's so humiliating. I think it's so bad for him. Yeah, but that's how politics.
Right. Yeah. Within just a minute, he's now an ordinary citizen, just like any one of us.
Yeah, just like in fact, I just feel like you can walk with him now on the same street probably. If you have access, no one is gonna do anything to you. So I think they withdrew all the bodyguards and all this kind of stuff. So it's literally just like an ordinary citizen, like any other person walking in the streets of Konyo Konyo or somewhere. So yeah, that's how painful it is sometimes. Politics is not easy, man. I I I don't know what crime he committed that made the president actually to do this. I mean, this is huge. It is really huge. I can only imagine. I mean, this thing is done for someone who has really committed a very grave crime against someone. You cannot just relieve someone of all these powers like this and take him to a military. I mean, just a mere citizen. So yeah, but we hope that all maybe with time the whole story about this comes out, and we really get to understand what inspired the decree issued by the president.
What was your initial impressions of what actually happened?
I think I wasn't really surprised by the removal of Dr. Benjamin Bolmer because I mean, over the week there has been always these rumors circulating on social media and everywhere about some kind of misunderstanding between Mel and the president. And President Kiir over the time has actually exhibited some kind of insecurity. And when he sees that there's someone who he feels insecure, I feel that he will really get rid of you. And I expected this. It didn't really take me by surprise. And also given the fact that Mel is a guy who is, I would say, not politically rooted. Really, he doesn't really have a very strong base in politics, and he perhaps, I would say, lacks some kind of political traits to actually uh, hold that position. So I really expected this based on all these factors, the fact that he is politically premature, and also that he has some kind of maybe some tensions with the president, a person who he shouldn't have any issues with. And yeah, the news actually didn't take me by surprise. I expected it, and it happened. But I didn't expect that it was going to happen this soon, because so many people have been looking at him as an immediate replacement to Kir maybe at some point. But it really happened so soon. But I expected it, and it wasn't a surprise.
Right. Yeah, it's very shocking. Uh, and for me, when I came across the news, I felt like how sad it is that the apparent heir apparent of Salva Kiir Mayardit, at least that is how the netizens have always portrayed him as. How sad that now all of a sudden he has fallen from the most decorated official in the country to a civilian with no military power or any political position at all. And I'm just wondering, like, you have mentioned political immaturity in the sense that this person wasn't in politics and stuff like that. Maybe before we even get to analyze this fallout more in depth, who is Benjamin Bol Mel, like in South Sudanese political and economic landscape, for maybe people who might not know his full profile?
I think the information that I have about Mel is that he is a very renowned business guy in the country. I mean, he ran so many businesses, I guess, like own many companies, and I feel they had some kind of partnership with President Kiir, and that gave him the advantage of actually coming into the political space. But he is, I mean, apart from politics, he's known as a very prominent and a very good businessman in the country, and that is what he's mainly known for. He's known as a business person in the country, and maybe because of their connections with Kiir and the sorts of stuff that actually made him brought to the presidency. But yeah, Mel is seen. I mean, over the months, he has actually come to the spotlight, very high positions, being appointed from. I mean, from the advisory role as the presidential special envoy on. I mean, envoy on special program, the position that currently occupied by Kiir's daughter. That's the position where I think he started, and later on, he got appointed to the vice president of the Republic of South Sudan, heading the economic cluster, and later promoted to a full general. I mean, these are some of the changes that, some of the promotions that he witnessed within a very short time. But Mel is not a, I don't really, in most cases, regard him as a typical politician, because he really lacks that. He is a business person. And I feel it is, he actually, at some point, I feel that he tried to bring in his business mindset into a political atmosphere, because so many politicians, I mean many businessmen, they always are profit oriented. They have ambitions, and it's a very different case when you come to political space, right? And over the weeks, we had about tensions that emerged between Kiir and vice president, where the vice president, I think, he started developing some kind of envy and wants to, I mean, have like more powers, and even assume to be having powers than the president. And then that's what provoked Kiir to actually invoke uh, his powers to issue the decree. So regarding Mel, is just, I know him as a business person. I mean, he's not more of a politician to me, but a business person. So many people, they saw that Mel at some point was going to be, I mean, a heir to the throne. I mean, like Kiir's immediate replacement, and that's what really so many. But I don't think that really President Kiir had the intention of making Benjamin Bol Mel to be his successor. I never saw that. All I saw is that the reason why Kiir was bringing Mel to the position is definitely because they really had a very good working relationship in terms of business, but not in him. I mean, becoming his replacement. But yes, the fall of Mel from his position when I read about it and I considered the factors that actually led to his downfall or their political divorce, it reminded me of the story of how Lucifer fell. I mean, when he was overthrown, when he saw that he was praised and a very beautiful angel and powerful, he started like developing some kind of envy, and he wants to be God, right? He even went on and then he tried to convince some of the angels to in heaven so they could wage some kind of war against God. And that was the time he was thrown to the earth. And that's exactly how Benjamin Bol Mel actually conducted himself. I think he should have actually understood that serving in that position and in a country like South Sudan, where the position is not constitutionally protected from you, but you only serve at the mercy of the president, he should have understood that you ought to actually exhibit some level of loyalty to the president. But I think that is what he did not exhibit. So, and because of that, uh, there are rumors about how he wants to overthrow Kiir and becomes the president, and I think that's what actually led to his downfall so fast and within a very short time. Had he conducted himself very well and exhibited some kind of loyalty to President Kiir, I think his political lifespan in his position would have been actually long. But unfortunately, he didn't do that. He didn't conduct himself in the most rightful way that would have actually made President Kiir to make him serve in that position. Yeah.
This is very interesting because maybe you could break it down a little bit for us, because I think from what I have read from the decrees, I understand that Benjamin Bolmel has been relieved of his position as the vice president for the economic cluster. He has been dismissed from his position as the deputy chairman of the SPLM party. He has also been relieved of his duty as a military general to now just a private, ordinary citizen. On top of that, he has been also dismissed from the National Security Service. This. Don't you think this is just a lot of stuff at play here for one to just say this was about uh, disloyalty?
I mean the the level of dismissal. I mean the number of positions that he was dismissed from. That clearly determines the crime that maybe he has committed. I mean, you can't be demoted from all these positions if you haven't done anything that is wrong. And the kind of disloyalty that I was meaning is that when you're not loyal to someone, of course you want to maybe wage some kind of, I mean, a coup or something against overthrow him. That means you're not loyal to him. So that might be the basis on where, I mean, bringing my disloyalty kind of argument here. But I mean, as you mentioned about all the positions that he was relieved from, this clearly tells us about the amount or the gravity of the disloyalty that he has exhibited to Kir. Perhaps Kir understands very well. There's always a saying that if you want to make a he goat, to actually, if you want the he goat to be sexually dormant, then what you need to do is you need to castrate it, and I feel that is what exactly Kir knows. Being a full general in the army gives Mel a lot of privileges, right? He would have a command at some point of some section of the army. He will have a command over it. That means he can even command the army to do something against someone he doesn't like, or an individual, could be even the president or the other vice president. Being a member of the National Security Service, that gives him a lot of intelligence about the country. Being a party deputy chairperson gives him advantage of serving in different structure of the SPLM party. And these are all privileges that comes with the positions that he served. So relieving him as the vice president of the country I mean that because the position of the vice president of the country is always related, is coordinated to the first deputy chairperson of the SPLM party. So the moment you are not serving as the vice president, then obviously I mean, the moment you serve as the vice president of the country, you likely be appointed as well as the deputy chairperson of the SPLM party. And when you relieve from that, that goes away with you as well. The position of the deputy chairperson of the party and the vice president of the country, they are so much detached. They're all, I mean, they are so much embedded together. So once you get relief from one, then you go away with all. But I feel the reason why he was dismissed from the National Security Council, it is because they want to actually uh, they don't want to give him the privilege of getting about the intelligence of the country. I think that is the main reason, so that he doesn't get information about the intelligence of the country, which is a very, very important sector of the security of the country. And I feel, yeah, relieving him from all this can easily make us understand of the amount of crime or the kind of disloyalty as exhibited to the president. If at all it wasn't something so huge, perhaps it would only be uh, maybe just a relief from the vice president, but he can still remain a general in the SSPDF, or even a member of the National Security Service, or any very important person in the SPLM party. But he got relief from all these roles. He got dismissed, and worst of all, from full general to a private mayor and an ordinary citizen. That clearly explains to us the amount or the gravity of crime he has committed, or the kind of disloyalty he has exhibited against the president. Yeah.
It's very interesting that the decrees did not explain why he has been relieved of all of these positions.
Yeah, I really don't think decrease in most cases they do explain reasons in detail why someone is released. We expect the president to have, in most cases, uh, the president issues decrease maybe through uh, a press conference, or I mean an address, like he makes an address to the nation and then he make a cabinet reshuffle. We've seen this happen in Kenya, where especially during the protest time and the president had to dissolve his cabinet. What he did was that he organized for the press, the media. They came to the state house and he went on, he read the whole uh, 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 statement about dissolving the cabinet, and he gave the reasons. But I think he would only explain in details when he maybe supposed to have like a press conference or kind of an address to the nation, rather than, I mean, decrees are always short, and I didn't expect the reasons to be explained in the decree statement issued at SSBC. So that would come actually through a press conference by the president or an address to the nation, and he had to explain to the South Sudanese why he actually relieved the vice president. But yeah, uh, that is the manner in which most decrees are announced in South Sudan. They don't explain in depth the reason why an official is removed from office. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that has always been the case. And my assumption was that at least the spokesperson of the president would come out and provide at least an explanation as to why these individuals, four of them, have been relieved of their positions.
Yeah, I think that should have been the case. Um, but also a presidential press secretary. You know how the country operates back home. I mean, you only work at the mercy of the president. I mean, if the president has not issued a statement to go and speak to the nation or release the nation, then who are you to just go and stand and then present reasons? I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me. So yeah, it's very true that the press secretary should have actually come out and explained that to the country, maybe call a press conference, call all media houses, and they explain the reason behind the decrease, right? That should have been the case, but it didn't happen. That could easily explain that maybe the president did not actually give a go ahead to the press secretary to issue a statement regarding the decrees that were issued last night. And that I don't really fault the press secretary, because majority of the people who work, if you work in the office of the president, or if you work in the presidency itself, or even in the ministries, majority of them work at the mercy of the president, and therefore you have no power to do things of your own. Most of the time you do things that impresses the president, and if he says do this, that's what you do. And majority of them, they don't really want to risk their jobs, you know. They just want to be loyal. That's what exactly maybe the press secretary didn't come out to give a statement in detail about the decrees that were issued last night. Yeah.
And I think that maybe because what we can basically do, or at least what we are doing right now as citizens, is we are speculating the reasons as to why uh, Bol Mel has been relieved of his duties to the extent in which it happened. And like you've pointed to disloyalty as one reason, I also feel that maybe when you step back a little bit, could, for example, the UN report that linked Bol Mel to around, I think, $1.7 billion of unaccounted public funds. Oh, because also this guy has been sanctioned by the US since 2017, by the way, for alleged corruption. So could it be an issue of, corruption, and maybe in the in the coming days and weeks and months, are we going to see maybe trial of Bolmel, or maybe at least any court proceedings or anything like that? Do you think we might get to see that as we are currently seeing with the first vice president?
um yeah, I read out that report that was issued by the UN Human Rights Commission, I think, on South Sudan. um but I like, this is my own opinion. I don't really think the reason behind the dismissal of Mel is so much, I mean, associated with the scandal. And I even read some news about how Mel and the guy, the Lol Deng, I think the president of the basketball federation, how they, I think there's a scandal of around 2 point something million, a billion US dollars, and all this. But I really don't think that there is anything that Mel did without the consent of the president. And if it is an issue of corruption, if it is an issue of scandals, and I don't think that Mel will do that without the consent because the basis on which they had a very good working relationship is it's on business issues. And whereas so many other people were also giving this as one of the reasons why he was, I by the way read it on the media, as that one being a reason of him being relieved. But also, if it is the reason, I think that is a very good step, I would say, if it is the reason. So I mean, until the government comes out and give us a very clear reason why the relief, I think we're only based on discussions on social media and platforms like this, based on the speculations. But there's no any clear reason stated by the government that this is the reason why Mel was dismissed. If it is disloyalty, or if it is because of the scandals and all kind of stuff, there's no any legit reason that we're basing our discussion. But if it is the corruption thing is the reason why he's dismissed, I think it's a very, very positive step. And it's one step that I mean, going to send out warning to those also getting maybe wants to be in this practice of corruption in the country. But yeah, if it is one, then that's an exciting and it's a positive move. But my own analysis, I feel that that is not the major reason why it's happening. Yeah, my personal view. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's quite interesting, what is unfolding in the country. It's I feel that it's the first of its kind that a government official has been stripped of their duties to the nature of Bol Mel. I think it's the first of its kind. Or has it ever happened before?
Oh, no, I really, I think Mel is the first person who has actually gone through that. I would say, I mean, when he was appointed from his position, the level at which he was promoted. I mean, it was so shocking to the entire country, and people were seeing him as the only luckiest guy who might have emerged in the political space in South Sudan, because within a very short time, the guy came from zero to the highest position, one of the most highest in the country. And I mean, stripping him out of those privileges, I think it's a very big humiliation. And I don't think there's anyone who has ever gone through what Mel went through. Very big humiliation. I mean, from vice president, removed from deputy chairperson of the party, from the army general to the National Security Service, and you met an ordinary citizen. Very humiliating. That's a very shocking, and it's a humiliation to him. Yeah.
Right. It's definitely a very humiliating experience. Definitely feels like a political takedown.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you think that the removal of Bol Mel is going to reshape the internal dynamics of the SPLM party, as in who stands to gain or maybe lose from his removal?
I think Kir is a very, very. I think I always credit Kir for this. I have observed him as one. I've always seen that maybe Kir is a very smart guy, or if he's not smart, he is actually being advised by very smart guys. You know, there are people who came into serving like in some of the ministries, and most of them were seen as people who were Mel's allies. And when Kir immediately returned from United Arab Emirates, of course, a few weeks ago, I think a week or 2 weeks ago or so, he went for a visit, I guess, like a work, 5 days work visit to the United Arab Emirates. And when he came back from there, that is the following day, I think on Monday, that's when he started issuing these decrees. And what he started, so many people claim that actually the guys who he removed first, these are the people who are so much allied to Benjamin Bolman. I think it was it is a kind of a well planting where he start by first taking off his allies, and then uh, ultimately he comes to Bolmel. But regarding who stands to win and lose, I really think Mel. I'm not seeing him coming back into the political space so easily. I mean, it's a very, very big blow for him right now politically, for Benjamin Bolmel, and given that he is under sanctions uh, by the U.S. Department of Treasury and Office of Foreign Asset Control, and I mean it's a very big blow for him. But now the only people who might win in this Mel's reshuffle, I'm suspecting two people here. One is that we're likely to see in the next few days, perhaps even tomorrow, we're likely to see another uh, decree issued on SSBC regarding a replacement for Mel. And the this is what I suspect. One, we may we may likely see Kir appointing the daughter as the vice president of the economic cluster. Adut Salva Kiir Mayardit is likely to be appointed, or if not Adut, we are likely to see Kir go back to his garbage bin and go and recycle Iga. That is what I have been suspecting, because one, Kir wants someone who is very loyal to him. And one, James Wani Iga over the years have mastered the art of being a loyal boy to the president. That's what I would say. He acts so cool, and so many times he has always sacrificed his position for someone else. And that is the art that Kir wants from an individual who wants to be close to him, someone that he does not see as a threat to his power. And and the person who stands that so much is eager. So he may go back and revisit this political garbage bin and then go recycle James Waniga, bring him in, or because he feels so much insecure by having someone like the daughter, he might bring in the daughter, Adut Salva Kiir Mayardit, to serve in that position. Because if we are to go back, the positions that Mel was brought into the vice president was the one that is occupied by Adut Salva Kiir Mayardit, the advisory position, senior presidential envoy and special program. That was the position that Mel occupied prior to his appointment as the vice president of economic cluster. So we are likely to see these two happenings. One, Adud might stand a very high chance of becoming Mel's replacement, or Kir might go back into his political garbage bin and then recycle Iga, bring him back as the vice president economic cluster. Or else we might see a very complete uh, uh, transformation in the presidency itself. We might also see the board coming in. Maybe Iga and Adud Salva Kiir coming back. But the reason why I'm seeing only one of them coming is because the position that is currently held by Josephine Lagu will never be given to an SPLA person. It needs to go to a member of the other opposition, South Sudan Opposition Alliance, which is not supposed to be a position for SPLM. So I'm just suspecting between Iga and Adud Salva Kiir Mayardit. And so many people have always been seeing that Kiir has been grooming the daughter actually to be his replacement. So there's a likelihood of Adut becoming the vice president, economic cluster by tomorrow night or in the next few weeks. Yeah, and he stands that high chances of winning. Right.
And I agree with you that most likely he might go and have James Eager restored as the vice president, or maybe bring in the daughter, or maybe completely a new face. But let's say if it so happens that actually Kiir appoints Adut, his own daughter, as the vice president, what would that say to South Sudanese and the world?
I mean, I don't. I mean, people will have nothing to say. That's the unfortunate thing about it. I mean, you'll have nothing to say, but it is from there now you would see exactly his intention. You know, uh, Kiir appoints. I mean, he can appoint any person he wants, and no one is gonna say anything, right? No one is gonna say anything. But uh, Adud, I think the only thing that she needs to do if she's given that chance is to act in a kind of a different way. I mean, a very different way. But also, I don't really think she would really deliver if she comes in that position. The presidency is not an experiment place where you bring someone from just from nowhere and then you bring them and want to test if they can do things. That is a very very important position that require experience, uh, that requires you to be politically mature in handling issues of the country. It's not just a simple space of doing experiments. And I would not be carried out by surprise if I see that she's appointed and she doesn't do anything, because she doesn't really have that much experience in the politics. She just came in the other day into the position she's appointed to. She's not even holding a cabinet position. She probably doesn't know how a cabinet operates or a ministry operates, leave alone the position of the vice presidency. So bringing a dude to the position of vice president economic cluster, I think will mean a disaster to the country. It's not just, it's not, she doesn't have a business experience. And the position of the economic cluster, you are supervising so many ministries. There are over 10 ministries that fall under the economic cluster. We're talking about the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, Ministry of Bridges, Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Wildlife, Tourism. All these ministries fall under Ministry of Investment. These are the ministries that fall under the economic cluster, and they are supervised by the Vice President Economic Cluster. Need someone who has the experience, need someone who has the network, need someone who understands how government operates, and Adut lacks that in totality. She lacks that, and I mean, she is the daughter to the president. Yes, she has the high chances of occupying it. But how about the experience? How about? I mean, she will never deliver. That's what I would say. Yes. But of course, he stands at the high chances of occupying that position because back home, it's not about the experience, it's about how your proximity to the person who occupies the highest position is what gives you the high chances of getting close to power. It's not about your experience or your education level or how competent you are, but it is the proximity or how close you are to the person who occupies the highest position. And Adut Salva Kiir stands the high chances of becoming the vice president. Yeah.
Right. And we still wait to see what will happen in the next few days, weeks, and
Mhm.
months.
Yeah, but if Kiir has a very good political advisors, I think he would be advised to recycle to bring back Iga. And if he brings back Iga, I think um, um, I don't see anything bad in his. There's no going to be tensions within the presidency and kind of power wrangles and all these, because Iga is a very loyal guy. Everyone knows about that. He is a very cool guy. He plays that, and perhaps, yeah, he has the experience. He served with Kiir for so many years. He served in that position before Mel occupied it. So he probably has the experience. I know he might not be the best, but they say if the best is not available, then you have to use the available to be the best. So he might be the only person close to the best who can occupy that position. Yeah.
With the magnitude of the reshuffle that we've seen last night, what might the implications be for the broader political stability in South Sudan and the future of South Sudan? Should we, as South Sudanese, be worried or should we be relieved?
I I really don't think there is any danger in the removal of Vice President Mel from his position. I think he really doesn't pose any threat to the government because one, this is a guy who just surfaced the other day into the political space. He has no basis. I mean, he has not established the political network in the. I mean, he doesn't have support on the ground, even in his own county or his own state. He doesn't have followings. So I don't see the removal of Benjamin Bol Mel as a threat to the security of the country because who is he going to mobilize? How is he going to mobilize? He has no networks. If he had served in the liberation war, maybe like one of the generals, then that is when people should have the fear. But Mel doesn't have that capacity to stage any kind of maybe what did I say? Um, a kind of like a revenge against the president. He doesn't have that capacity to do that because he does not have the network. He doesn't have the army is not so much allied to him. He is stripped, and that's what, by the way, the president started by doing. Make sure that he is relieved. And when you follow the decree, the way how it was issued, it was first the removal of him from being dismissed from the NSS, and then the army, and then finally comes to the vice president. That clearly tells you that he was, I mean, he was actually, uh, I mean, all the privileges that were given to him were taken out. So I don't see Mel posing a threat to the security of the country because he does not have the ground base. He has never been down to earth. He doesn't have even any history of being a very prominent guy in the army. He just got promoted the other day into a full general, and he doesn't pose any threat. I don't think there's any reason why people should get worried of Benjamin Bolman being a threat to the security of the country. He can only be a threat if maybe he go and maybe ally with some of the guys who had the capacity and have actually maybe defected. They are in the bush. If he allied with them, but again, one of the strategies that Kid has been using of late is that when he dismissed you from a position, he makes sure that you are detained within Juba. You're not allowed to move anywhere. And I think that is the step next that he's going to do to Mel as well. But even if he makes Mel move freely, still doesn't have the capacity to wage any revengeful move against President Kiir or the government of South Sudan, and I don't see him as a threat to the security of the country at all. Yeah.
Uh, what about the fact that Bol Mel is one of the richest people in South Sudan? And with that comes the capacity to be able to buy people.
Um, he's not gonna do that. Um, I I I think that's a good observation. But you know, the politics in our country operates a little bit different. The way how things operate in our country is not like the way how it operates in other countries, like Kenya. I mean, it's very hard for you to buy someone in South Sudan and then you want to Yesterday I watched a video of how there's one guy who make like very frequent videos about the political situation in the country. And then he said, actually, before the decree was issued today, last night, I watched the video and then he was explaining that the reason why actually Mel might likely be dismissed tomorrow is because um, there's this thing that Mel got involved in where there is one person who works for the president as a witch doctor, a person who tells, like, foresees the future of the president. And Mel went and bought this person, and this person was supposed to create some kind of confusion within the presidency. So Kir would, and I heard that he paid a huge money to this person, but this person went back and told the president about all the plan, and that's the reason why there's a kind of tensions between the president and Mel. So I feel um, the political operations in our country, it's a kind of a different that so many people are so much allied to someone that comes from their place, and they really don't consider the issue of money as a very important thing. You can give someone money but he still go back to that person and tells you that this is the thing that they are plotting against you. So whereas you might have the financial capacity, but I don't think, I mean, what are you going to do with the money? Are you going to, you know, the money you have are not arms? That's one thing. The money you have are not soldiers that you need to be a threat to a country. To be a threat to a country, you need to have a huge following. You need to have a military capability. You need to have I mean, the mobilization ability, mobilize people across the country, make them train, buy for them all these things. And one thing is that he is one guy whose assets are actually frozen in the United States, and he is under sanctions. So I don't think there is anything he can do outside the country. It's very hard because majority of the coordinations that if one person wants to do in the politics of a country is one when you have very high connection with the United States of America. So once you have issues with the US, I think you have less chances of succeeding in any plot that you want to perform against an establishment in any country. And I think that is one thing that will work against Mel, because one, he has issues with the United States, is under sanctions. Even if he has the money, he will not have the ability to mobilize across the country, will not have the network. He is stripped of all the powers that he had, and therefore he will not have that capacity to mobilize people against the president, against the government of South Sudan, and against the people of South Sudan. He might have the financial muscle, but that money alone is not enough to bring people, to motivate them to get weapons. I mean, where are you going to get the weapons in the first place? Where are you going to get it? For you to have weapons, you need weapons that might need to come through Uganda or come through Kenya before it lands in South Sudan. And Kenya and South Sudan is very good friends of Salva Kiir Mayardit. He has a very good working relationship. Probably they might not allow something like that happen, and therefore I don't see him posing a threat to the country at all. Yeah.
That is very interesting. Something you said. So we do have a witch doctor or a fortune teller in J1 that foresees and predicts what is likely to happen within the presidency.
That's what I had is from that video. But I don't really want to treat it as a statement of fact, because there's no any legit evidence that really tells us we do have someone like that sitting at J1 telling Kate about his future. But according to the video I watched, that's what the guy said. that there is someone who sits at J1 and tells Kir of his political future and knows when exactly his political career will come to an end, and what steps are threat to his presidency, and who are the threat to his presidency. That person keeps telling Kir about all this. Yeah.
Could this witch doctor have told Salva Kiir that Bol Mel is a threat to his leadership?
I think the kind of according to what that guy said, he said that Mel tried to create some confusion between Kir and the daughter, where I think because he felt like since the daughter of Kir was appointed to that position, she has become suddenly so powerful, and then like her presence on the media and everywhere is it's sufficing that of Mel, and that's what he didn't really want. And then I think Mel allegedly he told the witch doctor to create that kind of confusion and distrust between Kir and the daughter, and even said that the reason why Kir traveled to United Arab Emirates last time was to have a kind of reconciliation meeting, and like sit down with the family and the daughter and trace out what exactly came, and even said there was a time when this confusion came, the daughter actually wanted to resign. She wrote a resignation letter, and then she was like, "I don't want to be seen as a reason, maybe for my father's failure in the presidency." And then she took the letter to the uncles or the relatives, and the relative rejected it. And all, there's a kind of this. I looked at that guy like as a conspiracy theorist, and I really didn't take much of what he said so serious, because there's not, and this is not the first time I heard about the presence of that person at J1. But I don't want to say it's a factual information because there's no relevant evidence about that.
Right. And as they say, there's no smoke
Without fact,
without fire. Could
exactly.
it be true that there is actually a
It
fortune
could.
teller at J1?
It could be true. It could be true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, given the total loss of political and military power, what do you foresee for Bol Mel personally and politically in the coming months?
Politically, I don't see him re-emerging into the political space, because if he wants to do that, he needs to maybe come through a process which he might do that, but not in the next few months or so. If he wants to do that, if he has interest still in politics, then he has to go down to the grounds and maybe convince people. So next time we have an election, so he can vie and become something. But yes, his political, I think, uh, ambitions at the moment are crushed, and he really has nothing to make them, or to water them, and then maybe at some point rematch. Maybe at some point when we have an election in the country and he wants to buy, he can maybe reemerge through that process, but not through the usual process of appointment and all this kind of stuff. I don't think he will ever reemerge into the political landscape of the country. And what he needs to do maybe is, one, he go back and ventures into his businesses. That's what he can do. And but again, one thing is that I think if you have lost trust of the president, so many people were attributing all the businesses that he was running to the support of the president. But I think if you have actually hurted the president in the way he might have done, then I think he might also be striped off of the support that the president might maybe was giving him in terms of the running the businesses. So yeah, but it's very normal that someone of his caliber can easily come from the position he was holding to completely an ordinary citizen. So he needs to accept that fact and that reality, and maybe just join the street as the majority of the South Sudanese as well, and also understand that that is the nature of politics. Yeah.
Right. So, Emmanuel, is there a lesson to be learned from this experience of Balmel, right from how he quickly rose to how also he quickly fell, especially for the presidency? Is there a lesson to be learned?
So many lessons, Patrick. One is that, as I said before, that you know it is good to always understand the nature of um, the space that you're working in, right? It's very very important. And I mentioned this at the start that if you are someone in the caliber of Bol Mel, who has seen the favor of the president over the past few months, that even at some point, when there are so many seasoned politicians, military politicians within the army, but the president still went and just place his blessing on you and then try to pick you, and even went on and sacrificed one of the veteran military person who fought so much in the liberation in the names of James Waniga, just to give you that place. And you know that you were given that privilege by such a person. You should understand the circumstances or the landscape in which you're operating. This is a country which does not really have a very permanent and full constitution, where the positions that you're serving in are protected by the law, and that when you're serving in those positions, there is no one who poses a threat to what that position and maybe gets you removed out. When you serve in this position, you're serving at the mercy of the person who appointed you, and that when you serve in this position, you must always possess some level of loyalty. That is one thing, that a lesson that people must learn. You must always be loyal. There's one book called The 48 Laws of Power, written by Robert Greene. And one of the first laws of power is that you should never outshine your master. You should never outsmart them. Do not pose a threat to their well-being, and they shouldn't look at you as a threat and look at you and become insecure in where you're operating. And then that is what Mel failed to exhibit. He made President Kiir insecure throughout by his dealings, by his conduct. And that's what so many people need to do. It's not only in politics, it is wherever you operate. It could be in your businesses, it could be in your workspace, or everywhere you're operating. Do not always try to outshine the master. And that if you do have ambitions that are overwhelming, you should always learn the art of secrecy. Do things underground that no one spots it out so often. Like, the persons above you should never get to know about what you're planning. If you do have plans against him, if you have ambitions of maybe replacing him or taking over his position, always learn the art of secrecy. Do them in secret, do them underground, and no one should know about them. Because the moment they know about it, then they will strip you of all your privileges, just like what they did to Benjamin Bol Mel. And that was very, very important lesson. Yeah.
Uh, some people would say that great masters or teachers would always want to see their students become better than them as the masters. Is there a lesson to be learned here by the president himself? Because I think so many people online say that the nature in which Bol Mel was selected in the first place showed favoritism, as in he did not have the qualification and portfolio to really take on the office he was given.
Mhm.
But even as the darling of the president, in a short time we've seen a fallout between Salva Kiir and Bol Mel. Is there a lesson that maybe the president himself could learn from this experience?
I think one biggest lesson that the president also needs to learn is that, you know um, it's always good to be on the lookout about the people that work around with you. I mean, in politics, it always suggests that you surround yourself with the people that you trust most. That is what happens everywhere around the world. The nature of politics is that once you become a head of state, once you become a president of a country, you always want to associate yourself with people that have been supporting you, people that wants to promote your agenda, people that If you are a president who is corrupt, you want to associate yourself with people who are corrupt. If you have an intention of delivering to the country, you associate yourself with people that have that intentions in mind. And that's why when people get elected as president, they go and look at their surrounding, their friends, their network, and they look and appoint ministers to serve in those cabinets. And then what Kerry should learn is that it's hard. Do not in politics. You should not trust anyone. You should not trust in politics. There is no friendship in politics, and that whenever you get into the political space, you lost some kind of I feel like you lost some kind of sense in you, and you become like a monster. That's what I would call. You become a monster. You become envious. You become ambitious, and that within a very short time, because of the power that is given to you, you want to claim that you are in control of everything. And I think that kids should always be very careful on how you groom people to be around you, because he seems to have created a mountain out of an anthill, and that he now has to deal with it. He has to climb to the other side of it. And that is what exactly what happened to him with Bol Mel. That a guy from nowhere, he made him so powerful within a very short time that at some point he had to deal with. And that is what he should learn, that in the next time he should always give people the face. I mean, make the promotion, but give them the faces, give them a position at a time, learn how they act in those positions before you give them the full force or the full powers. Otherwise, if you continue to do this, the next time he might bring in someone who would not be of the caliber of Mel, but one that is experienced and can actually make his political career come to an end and his presidency within a very small time. And that is what he should always learn from this whole story. That do not trust anyone in politics, and give people some faces before bringing them into the limelight. I mean, learn about them, give them the time, train them at some point. You don't just have to bring people from nowhere to a very high position. Yeah.
Right. That's very interesting. I think right now, for for most citizens in South Sudan, we are all trying to wrap our mind around this dramatic moment
Right.
and how Bol Mel has fallen from grace to
Right.
grass. And I'm just wondering, like, for you, what are the key takeaways from this fallout, especially for South Sudanese citizens who are still trying to really, understand what exactly has happened here?
I I I really think for many South Sudanese regarding what has happened. I mean, that is a very very normal thing in politics. I mean, that happens every time. The only difference with our country is that the frequency at which this thing happens is it's so extraordinary. I mean, it happens so often compared to other countries. Things to do with reshuffles happens every time, every across the world. Even in the most democratic countries, reshuffles happens. And the fallout between the president and by the way, there are so many people who were celebrating when they had the news about the removal of the vice president. I saw a video of people celebrating, dancing, and all this, and they were like, "Oh, finally, Salva Kiir has heard to the prayers and the cries of the people." But I think what people need to understand this so deep that apart from just appointment, there is something so deep that this kind of frequent reshuffles and hiring and firing, recycling affects, and it affects the lives of the citizen itself. As we had from our preliminary discussions, I mean, before we get into this, I told you that when we have this kind of reshuffles happen so often, where we have members of the cabinet taken out and new people brought in, it really becomes so hard for a country such as new as South Sudan to develop systems. It becomes so hard for the same country to develop. I mean, like a development plan for each ministry. What do you want to see your ministry achieve in the next 20, 30 years? It becomes so hard. This only happens when we have a stable cabinet, when we have a stable ministers who learn how things operate in the ministries, who lays down program, lays down and draft policies, and they implement them, follow them in phases and until it is implemented. But when we keep changing people, we have systems that are not developed, systems that are very weak, and the ultimate person who suffers are the common people down there, because there are no system that can easily take services down to them. Last time we had, just a few weeks ago or a few months ago, the bank, the Central Bank of South Sudan, developed a financial architecture called the instant payment system, or the interbank payment system, where all the banks operating in South Sudan would be connected. And then, I mean, it becomes so easy for the government to do transactions to people, to employees, and people paying taxes. It was a very great idea, though there were some loopholes, but it was a very great move, established by one great person who just got dismissed last night, called Addis Ababa, the governor of the Central Bank of South Sudan. So when we have people like this who have good intentions for the country, who develop such systems, which should have been given much attention, and they should have been given more chances to actually read, I mean, to in details implement it and make it come into fruition. So when we have such people taken out and new people brought in, I mean, we have problem of developing our system. So that is the greatest problem that we need to see as citizens. I mean, shouldn't just look at these reshuffles and get excited over it, because I have a cousin, I have an uncle, I have an auntie who get appointed to this position. But what is the impact of this dismissals and reappointment and appointment in real sense? The ultimate impact of it gets down to the common people of the country, and these are the South Sudanese who get affected. And I think this is what we should always look at. It's not about who get appointed; it's about how impactful these reshuffles are going to be on us as the common people on the ground. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and definitely they have a significant impact, impacting, our political, social, and economic lives significant ways. And speaking of the impact, how do you think the fallout between Kir and Bol Mel might affect South Sudanese business climate, international reputation, and even relationships with donors and allies? And you've spoken to someone like Addis Ababa, and who is a very close ally of Bol Mel, and he's been dismissed too. And I read online, some people were like, you know what? It is only fair that they were dismissed together due to, alleged cases of corruption and stuff like that.
Mhm. I think the impact, every time Kiir issues a decree and removes someone out from the position, it sends out a message to the international community and the investors out there that there is political instability in the country. And they know, taking it back to 2013 on how the murder of reshuffles or cabinet reshuffle happened in 2013, where he dismissed the vice president, Dr. Machar. That is the genesis of the whole mess that the country is going on today. So every time Kir dismisses a general in the army, a minister, a vice president, it sends out a message to the international community and the donors that there is a possibility of these guys defecting, going to the bush and fighting back the government. And this affects so many services that comes to the people. These international communities, I mean, some of them close their embassies and they go back because they fear that their employees or their workers might be affected by war. Even investors who have interest of coming to invest in this country, they know clearly that there is no political instability. And if there's no political instability in country, there's no one who is interested in investing in that country. So I think these frequent reshuffle, including the one that happened last night, only adds on the level of worry to the international community about the kind of instability that might emerge in the next few months. And it chases out these investors who might have the interest to come to South Sudan and invest as well. It actually makes them lose interest in coming to the country. And at the end of the country, at the end of the time, I mean, uh, at the end, if we don't have a country with a very good economy that investors are attracted to come in, the ultimate results would always be one that impacts on the common people. And I think that is it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now maybe zooming out a little bit to looking at what might happen in the next 3 to 6 months following, these dismissals. What should we look out for as the public or as South Sudanese citizens with regard to where, the political winds are blowing?
Yeah, I think one thing we should look at one is that we might see this dismissal that happened last night. It might change some kind of stuff on the ongoing trial of Machar. So we are likely to see a kind of shift, a kind of change in the current trial that is going to make, because there's so many people who attach Benjamin Bol Mel to the ongoing trial of Machar. He has been seen as one of the champions, one of the guys who pushed for this trial to happen. So one of the things that maybe we should look out is that we are likely to see a shift in how the trial is going to end, or how it's going to run, or the end results of it, or the verdict that is going to be issued by the court probably might reflect the results of what happened last night. So this is what we should be on the lookout. But also, as I said before, we are likely to see new faces coming out maybe tomorrow, or in the next few weeks on the presidency itself. We're likely to see a new vice president coming into the presidency, and that, as I said, could be the daughter of the president, or James Wani Iga. These are some few things that should get to look out. Yeah.
Right. Amazing. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
I mean, final thoughts to South Sudanese. I think there's no reason to panic. These are things that happen often in any by any government. These are things that happen. Only the difference is that ours happen so frequently, and it's because of how Kir wants to actually try to extend his political lifespan. That's the reason why he's issuing it so frequently. But it's a kind of normal thing that happens in every government, that people get to be removed and new faces brought in any government. So what happened last night is not exceptional. It's a very common practice in politics that happens across the world. And that if you are one person who tried to sabotage the plan of a president, if you're someone who poses a threat to him and you wants to be disloyal, that's obviously what you face. You face the wrath of his power. And that's what exactly happened last night to Dr. Benjamin Bol Mel from the presidency, or from the president of the Republic of South Sudan, Salva Kiir Mayardit. Yeah. It's a very common practice in politics. And one thing you must know is that politics is always ruthless. There's nothing to be in politics. You are not in daycare where you need to be babysitted. There's nothing about that. Politics is always ruthless. Politics is always a game of monster. Politics is always an evil game. And if you desire to be in politics, you must be ready to face all the bad things that comes along with it. And yeah, that is politics. Yeah.
So, following up on what you just said, is that these frequent dismissals that we are seeing are basically an effort by the president Kiir to consolidate power and hold on to power.
I yeah, I rightfully think so, because you know, Kerry is one guy who is a seasoned military uh, person. He learned through um, the liberation time of how impactful an army is. He knows how alliances, when built, can easily crash down establishments. He learned how in 2021, or even in before that, when how the government of Omar Hassan and Bashir was brought down by an army general who was serving in the Sudan Armed Forces and later turned against the president and brought him down. He might have learned a lesson from how Milton Obote of Uganda was brought down by President Museveni. He learned the history of how Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was brought down by a guy who served him as a very close person. Kir understands very well that in a country such as South Sudan, power sometimes does not only sits with the presidency, it sits in the army barracks with the generals, it sits with these cabinet members who sometimes pretends to be your close ally, and that if you try to give them the freedom and the time in a country like South Sudan, where people there's a kind of confusion within the political elites itself, where people have loyalties paid to different people. So if you try to keep some kind of stability in the cabinet or in the military, then you are giving yourself a time for these guys to develop a network and then try to topple your government. So I think what he is doing is that by issuing these frequent reshuffles and cabinet and sacking and rehiring, is that he is trying to destroy some potential plots that might be coming against his government. And I think that is what exactly he is doing. And I think I'm giving it to him. This is what exactly he is doing. He's trying to break this potential maybe plots that might be planned by these generals. That's why in less than 1 year, we have seen more than three chief of defense forces. You know, the mighty that these guys have. They have the ability to crush down establishment, governments, arrest them, bring them down. And that's what he is doing exactly. Yeah.
To make sure he keeps only those who
Those
are
who are loyal.
loyal to
Yeah,
him.
not necessarily those who are loyal. You can bring in someone who is not loyal to you, but that you don't just have to give them enough time to maybe plan something against you. In the process, you make them short so that when they are planning it, you distract them, take out the powers from them so they know, oh, this has finally is not going to come into reality because it's crashed down in the process. So I think that is what he is doing, and that's what he has been doing, and I think that is what he will continue to do. Yeah, and the moment you see he gives. I mean, I wrote something about this that by the time Kiir gives like 1 year without doing any cabinet reshuffle or any reshuffle in the military, you will soon see his government taken to an ICU. He will never survive. His government will definitely come to an end. Because you can easily see the dissatisfaction of the people, the political elite. You can see the dissatisfaction of the army. This is an army that is not paid for many months, not fed, their families are going through so much, and then coupled with a population that is really dissatisfied like the one in South Sudan. So when you let all these factors to come together and network and give them these people to be led by a wrong person at the right time, so your government can easily come to an end in a blink of an eye in a very short time if you're not serious. And I think he understands the mighty of the military. That's why he doesn't want to give them that peace to mobilize, to build network and alliances that might pose a threat to his government. Yeah.
Interesting. And also, there is this conspiracy uh, online that uh, you see right now, the South Sudanese soldiers haven't been paid for some even close to now a year. They haven't received any money or salary, and yet their salaries like about $10. And there's this conspiracy that when Bol Mel took office, he brought in the UPDF, who are paid $500 a month.
Right. I also read that. I read about that. But yeah, that's not it's not strange. I mean, it's possible that could be true, and I think the reason is one is that um, the reason why that might be true is because one, Mel with together with Kir, we are trying to defend. When we look at the situation under which the UPDF was brought in South Sudan, was when there was an issue happening in the northern parts of the country in Nasir, where we had the armed militia group in the name of White Army, wanted to engage the government in some kind of war. So um, this is a country that has an army that is not motivated. This is a country that is under under sanctions, I think arms embargo. So you don't have the ability to go and purchase arms to give to the army to go and fight these armed militia group who might be posing a threat to your government. So what are you left with? You're left with no option but to go and import an army, a foreign army, to come and defend your government. And the cost that comes with that, you're ready to always bear it. And I think that is what they were ready to do, to defend their government, pay much money as demanded by Muhozi or President Museveni to their soldiers, but at the uh, assurance that they are going to protect their government. And then that happens. That is not a surprise. That can easily happen, given that the army of the country is it's I will say it's ill trained. I mean, it's incapable of handling an internal militia group in the names of White Army. That clearly tells us how weak the army is. And when you have a weak army, of course, that cannot defend your government, you're left with no options but to go and import one that can easily protect your government. And that's why they went for the UPDF, I guess. Yeah,
Wow, there's a lot happening in South Sudan.
right. So much.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
much.
right,
And honestly, I think what we can do at the moment is just keep monitoring
right.
what developments
Exactly.
will
There's
be.
always a story. Always, every new week, I mean, comes with a new story. Things are
Yes,
evolving every day. Yeah,
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Emmanuel Taban, for your insights.
no
Really
problem.
appreciate it.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, and
Right.
listeners and viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts. Until next time, bye bye and take care.
Bye.